And so self-love is the most powerful way to negate all of that generational trauma, all of that cruelty, all of that belittling, and saying, no, if I have a dream, there's a reason. If I want something, there's a reason that seed of desire lives inside of me. It's because I'm meant to manifest it. I'm meant to live it. I'm worthy and deserving of living it. And all the other voices become quieted.
Grace, thank you for coming on the podcast for a second time.
Thanks for having me back.
Episode 301, and I believe this is 371.
Wow.
So I'm very honored and humbled to have somebody that has influenced me so much come on the show and hopefully influence other people to help them live a more fulfilling, a more peaceful, and a freer life. So when I ask about what has given you the most freedom in life, what comes to mind?
Couple of things in a very specific order. First and foremost, getting sober at 24. I met my husband 1 year and 1 month after that. So meeting Bernardo and marrying him as quickly as possible was the next thing. Quickly followed by hypnosis. So I met Bernardo at a meditation class in January. We were both dating other people. We saw each other 3 months later. We were both single then. And in the interim, I got my first hypnotherapy certification. So he was one of my first practice clients ever. I saw him at this event. It was actually what was it called? A yoga rave at Pasha, like the meditation school rented out Pasha in New York. And there was a happier hour with like wheatgrass shots. And so we're there. And, I was like, hi, how are you? Good. How are you? I'm single now. I'm a hypnotist now. Can I hypnotize you next week? Those things for the first, 9.5 years. And then most recently changing my diet. To being more raw vegan has really given me a lot of freedom. So those things in that order. And I don't think one missing piece would change the whole thing. My life would be completely different and much worse. So they were really, really important.
When you talk about the diet, because I know we spoke about meeting Bernardo and what that was like on the first podcast, but I'm curious about the diet. What about this new diet has given you more freedom?
Yeah, so I've only been on it for a little while, and Jillian Berry is a tremendous expert. I love her YouTube channel. I watch her constantly just to be reinforced. She has people on her channel all the time who are 72 years old and they look 40, or they're 68 years old and they have a better body than I've ever had. I mean, these really inspiring, brilliant, fit people who their cognitive ability has known no decline. If anything, it just keeps getting stronger with age. Very, very inspiring. And most of them reversed significant disease. And when I had my daughter, Aurora, who's turning 3 in August, she's so perfect and amazing in every way. My son, Patrick's 5, he'll be 6 in August. But after Aurora, I had severe health issues, primarily stemming from gut issues. I think because being pregnant during the pandemic was not fun. Thinking you're going bankrupt because of the pandemic is not fun. Having an emergency C-section, all of these complications led to what I think was systemic candida. So I had, I can't begin to tell you how many tests, thousands of dollars in supplements, so many different doctors and functional medicine people. Only to recently have a breakthrough. I'm not on the other side of it. So when you have me back in a year, hopefully I'll be able to say with absolute certainty this is what it was. But committing to this combination of a raw vegan diet, Dr. Goldner's protocols, she reversed her lupus with a raw vegan diet. And some things I learned from Kimberly Snyder have really started to change things. So yeah, all mental fog lifting. And I know people will look at me and think, you had issues? You always seem so happy. But the fatigue was crushing. The mental fog would be really, really bad. Just some even like depression and anxiety. And if I didn't have hypnotherapy, I know how bad it could have been. I know I mitigated it very, very well with this other tool that I'm so immersed in. It's my whole life. But I just think about what everybody else in the world is going through. If they too are having these issues and they don't have hypnotherapy, it's a mess. It's horrible. You can barely get out of bed in the morning. So yeah, the energy, the clarity, the focus, and their whole thing is that it's living food. It's live enzymes, that when you cook food, you're killing the enzymes. And so you're getting less life force from it. I'm not a nutritionist. I'm not a dietitian. I'm sure tons of people will want to debunk that. So I'm not making the case for it. I'm just sharing what's worked for me.
That's cool.
Yeah.
Thank you for sharing. One thing you mentioned was about how you were feeling really down during this period, understandably. And I'm curious how much it was difficult for you based on you helping other people is something you do constantly. Yeah. And now you don't feel whole. How does that play on your psyche? And how do you overcome that when you're the go-to source for so many?
Exactly. Well, during sessions, I always feel that something else is speaking. When I'm having a hypnotherapy session with a client, there is information coming through me that's not just from me. And so I can always lean into that and trust that it's going to be there. It's never not been there. It's always profound. It's always exactly what the client needs to hear, and I can't take credit for it. I really don't believe that I can. It was everything else that was impacted. So really, I've barely been online, since Aurora was born. I used to be constantly creating content. I used to be constantly speaking. I was constantly traveling and going to different workshops and things like that. And I have done almost none of it. Now, part of that is the world has changed and you can do more over Zoom, which is just great and convenient when you've got little kids. But a lot of it also is just like I couldn't muster the energy to do it. And I'm really grateful for this period. It helped me refine so much what's important to me, who I do want to be in the world, so that when I get back out there, it's extremely intentional. And then I'm not just doing what I always did because that's the path I was on and it's just perpetuating itself. But the area that I think was most painful, because even though that was hard, I knew our community was fine. I knew our audience was fine. I've already made hundreds of YouTube videos. There's hundreds of recordings on the app. Our school is phenomenal. If people need support from me, the content exists. And I could still make content for the app throughout this time. But where it hurt me the most was my kids. I wanted to be able to be super mom every day and wake up before they did and play with them forever. But I would get really, really, really tired. Yeah, and it took a lot away. So that was what gave me, it's like my kids are only going to be little for a tiny bit longer. I'll do whatever I have to do to fix this. If that means eating, you know what I mean? Like vegetables for the rest of my life and nothing else, I will gladly do that. I just need to be able to be there for my kids.
Makes sense.
Yeah.
Why did you think you were going to go bankrupt?
Oh, well, yeah. We didn't diversify very well. Our school was 70% of our revenue at the time, and it required our students to fly in to see me in person twice.
I see.
And so we had students in China who were supposed to come see me in March of 2020. And we had students in Italy who were supposed to come see me. So, those were the first places that were hit really terribly. And when we had to close the school, we had to say goodbye to 70% of our revenue. And the rest of the world was just changing so much. A lot of our sessions were in person still. So luckily, we were able to pivot and do better than ever. But I was, 3-4 months pregnant when all that happened, when people were dying all over the world. It hadn't yet hit America. And we were closing down the school. It was terrifying. It was so stressful.
How do you revamp then and build up?
So it was amazing. I mean, it took a very long time to redo everything, re-record everything, rebuild everything. But it went from me teaching 12 people in my living room or in our office for 10 hours a day, every day for 5 days in a row, every 2 weeks, doing that again and again and again, to teaching 160 people at once globally online. And I had always really believed that the in-person part of the training was key to why our students turned out to be the phenomenal hypnotherapists that they were. And I was so wrong. I was really wrong about that. And I cost us a lot of money for for maintaining that stance for so long. I really felt it was important that we all got together in person, but I limited our business model. I limited how many people could come to our school. And I was, incorrect about the outcomes because our students still, I think we've done about 15,000 private hypnotherapy sessions with our team this year with a 4.9 star average. And they're all graduates of my school, and that's all over Zoom.
Wow.
So we lost nothing. If anything, we gained not just revenue, but students we never would have had. So that was, if you can put a silver lining to a pandemic, that would have been it for us. Yeah.
I just learned about this worldwide meditation that occurred in 1987.
Oh.
Do you know the name of it any chance?
No, but Sri Sri Ravi Shankar is doing that like right now as we speak.
No way.
Yeah.
Wow. So I learned about this and I was blown away that in 1987, I believe August 16th and 17th, the world came together to do a group meditation. And then in 1989, communism falls. And it's
Whoa.
like, and so you think about like what that meditation did or potentially could have done is crazy. And so when I hear about your hypnotherapy being virtual, it's like a lot of people, you can still have the same impact for a virtual world. And we often don't think about that. So how do you think about growing the consciousness of the world virtually now and given that opportunity?
One of the things you and I spoke about briefly before we jumped on was how I can't measure it as clearly as if I see 20 people in front of me. They all walk in looking miserable. They close their eyes. We do group hypnosis. They open their eyes. They're all happy, right? And then it's like, wow, that made a difference. So I don't experience it as tangibly or as, viscerally as that when my team will come to me and say, we had 5,000 people listen to the app this morning before 9 a.m. I'm like, wow. Great. But what does that mean? When you really think about that 5,000 people listening even before 9 a.m. Eastern Standard Time, the energy they're going to bring into their families, the energy they're going to bring into their offices, the energy they're going to bring into their creative pursuits, it changes everything. And it really, truly does have this massive butterfly effect. And so the way that I try to focus my energy is really on the app at this point, because private hypnotherapy sessions are wonderful, but because hypnotherapy isn't yet regulated, it's not covered by insurance. And so it's not accessible to everyone, but the app is. There's free recordings on the app. And most people, if they have a phone that can play the app, they can afford the $19 upgrade if they want it, right? And so I think about uplifting consciousness by having that change from 5,000 people listening before 9 a.m. to 5 million, right? If 5 million people are listening to the app every single morning before they start their day, they're bringing a completely different energetic blueprint into the world. And there's just no way humanity can be the same if that's the case.
What should somebody hears that and they're like, I want to get the app, and what should they do? How should they think about starting their hypnotherapy journey? Especially, let's say if they're like, why would I need hypnotherapy?
Yeah. So everybody needs hypnotherapy. And I'm not just saying that because we have the largest hypnotherapy business globally. We have the largest hypnotherapy business globally because we know everyone needs it. I mean, it really did not start off as a business opportunity. If anything, it looked like career suicide. It has since become a tremendous opportunity. But where you need to start is with understanding everything you want to accomplish in this life is going to come down to if you can get your conscious mind and your conscious goals and your conscious desires in alignment with what your subconscious believes is safe for you to do. So very simple example, one that many people encounter is your conscious mind says, I want to lose 25 pounds. If your subconscious believes that sugar keeps you safe or that it's not safe to look good, which is a very common subconscious belief, especially for people who have had any type of sexual trauma, it's not safe to be attractive. The subconscious is going to sabotage those efforts endlessly. And so if you use hypnotherapy, you directly access your subconscious mind and you can speak to it directly about why it means well, but it's incorrect that sugar is not keeping it safe, that extra 25 or 50 or 100 pounds is not keeping them safe. In fact, it's hurting them. And when you can speak directly to the subconscious mind, kind of negotiate with it. My parents always thought I should be an attorney, and I sort of feel like
You're convincing people.
I am, a little bit. I mean, I am negotiating with a misinformed subconscious all day long, every day, and getting it in alignment with the conscious mind. And so everyone can benefit from this. And it can be something as seemingly simple and straightforward as weight loss. But if it really were, it wouldn't be a multi-billion-dollar industry, right? Weight loss is something people still struggle with. You think we would have figured it out by now. So it's not straightforward, even though it can seem that way. It can be nail biting, it can be public speaking, or it can be something so much deeper. It can be, who are you in this world? What vibration, what frequency are you showing up with every morning? Are you a light that walks into a space and can brighten it? What is the meaning of your relationship with your children, with your spouse, with your friendships? It can be as deep as you want it to be. It can be as seemingly surface level as you want it to be. And the best place to start, I think, is honestly the anxiety series. It's a wonderful series. It's called the Anxiety Relief Series. Every recording in it is relatively short. They're between, I believe, 9 and 14 minutes. So on the shorter side for our app, the average is 23 minutes per recording. And the reason I recommend beginning there is because I describe the journey that we use hypnotherapy for like a tree. So if you think about the limbs, that's all the physical manifestations of our issues. You can see them. So a limb might be nail biting, a limb might be insomnia, a limb might be yelling at your kids when it's the last thing you want to do. So a lot of people think if they just hack off these limbs, right, that they're getting rid of the issue. But actually another limb can just grow. We see this a lot with gastro bypass surgery. There are studies that found that upwards of 85% of people who have this procedure end up developing sex addiction or alcoholism because there was a food addiction previously, and making your stomach the size of a walnut doesn't serve the root issue, right? It's hacking off a limb, which is wonderful and can be life-saving for many people, but not if you're not doing the inner work that caused the food addiction in the first place, right? Healing that. So if you just hack off a limb, another one can grow, and more than likely it does. And it's not going to necessarily be the same vice that it was before, but it's a vice nonetheless because there's still that subconscious issue. The trunk of the tree is stress or anxiety. If your stress levels go way down, you're on vacation for 3 weeks without internet, and you finally adapt to life at that pace and you're calm, they might all become what feels like phantom limbs. Like you don't have those issues. You're biting your nails less. You're snapping at your kids less, right? It's almost like the limbs go away. They become phantom limbs. But the minute you're back to reality or a stressful situation occurs and the stress levels go back up, the limbs reactivate themselves, right? And then at the root, we've got lack of self-love, lack of self-worth, and lack of self-confidence. And really, if you had to, you could bundle them all into lack of self-love, but that tends to be a bit of a reach, a bit too woo for some folks to start. Lack of self-confidence, people can wrap their head around. Lack of self-worth, they can as well. So as a basic beginner entree to hypnotherapy, if you start with the Anxiety Relief series, you're at least going to get that benefit of the phantom limbs. It's not the end all be all, but it's a wonderful introduction to how good life can feel. And from that point, you'll be motivated to do the deeper work for self-worth, self-love, and self-confidence.
What are the reasons why the lack of self-love, self-worth, and self-confidence come about in the first place?
Really good question. Generational trauma. Since the dawn of time, we've been so mean to ourselves and everybody else. I mean, there's a lot of problems in the modern world, but when you really think back just a few generations ago, parents could beat their children senseless. Priests punched my dad at his Catholic school. You know what I mean? He was born in 1946. Like, this is not that long ago. Punched him in the face, and the parents were like, guess he deserved it, So this is not that long ago. You watch period pieces of movies that are meant to represent what life was like 100 years ago and the things that people said. If someone was selling a kid was selling a newspaper on the street and somebody rolls by in their fancy carriage and the kid gets mud on them and the person in the carriage is like saying these horrible, evil things to the kid. We don't know that exactly happened, but by reading historical accounts, there is just so much cruelty in human history. And so loving yourself and thinking you're worthy and deserving of living whatever your dreams are is a radically new concept. Almost universally. Of course, there were some people, there was the Buddha, there was Jesus, there were these spiritual leaders. My dear friend, I love her so much, Megan Watterson. She's a feminist theologian, Harvard educated, and she writes about Mary Magdalene and her gospel and the things that she had to say about love and empowerment and all these things. So it's not like it wasn't there. It was just so minute compared to the cruelty and the brutality that everybody else faced at every other level. Even if you were a woman in the aristocracy, you were constantly being raped by your husband and nobody cared. That was legal. So I think gentleness, with ourselves and with others is a new concept universally. And so self-love is the most powerful way to negate all of that generational trauma, all of that cruelty, all of that belittling, and saying, no, if I have a dream, there's a reason. If I want something, there's a reason that seed of desire lives inside of me. It's because I'm meant to manifest it. I'm meant to live it. I'm worthy and deserving of living it. And all the other voices become quieted. All the naysayers, all of the doubt, all of the cruelty loses power when you can love yourself and know you're worthy of your dreams coming true. And then you can pursue them in a way where you emanate kindness. That's key too. Historically, there have been people who've bolstered themselves enough to go after their dreams, but they're jerks while they're doing it. So spreading the light and being the light while you pursue these wonderful worldly aims is a new concept.
Do you think that we're born with a desire or something to manifest inside of us?
Yeah, I do. I think I'm thinking about how woo to get here.
Get as woo as you want. We accept and love you with open arms.
Okay, thank you. So based on my experiences with spontaneous past life regressions that I've seen in sessions. So these are not hypnotherapy sessions that set out with the intention to visit a past life. These are folks who came with me because they have, chronic pain and it's inexplicable. And we say, let's go to the root of the pain. And now they find themselves on another planet at another time. And they left their soul there, 80% of it, because they weren't sure they were going to like their first incarnation on Earth. And now they're dying physically because they don't have enough of their soul with them. And there's this strange alien bobblehead grandma who said, you told me if you came here and said, give me back my soul, that I wasn't supposed to give it to you. I mean, this happens with clients who are physicians. You know what I mean? These are clients who don't come with any sort of spiritual conceptions as to what can happen. These are business people, these are attorneys, and they come because they don't want to feel pain anymore, not because they want to go on some wild trip to another planet. But these things just unfold naturally. And then before you know it, the client is crying hysterically with joy because their soul has been reintroduced to their body. And then they're emailing me months later saying their pain's gone.
Wow.
So through all of these wild, spontaneous experiences that I've seen with clients who did not set out to have them, but who benefit from them nonetheless, I believe we come here with a goal. And the goal is a combination of experiencing things that we enjoy, right? Like, let's just assume reincarnation's real, right? Billions of people are born on planet Earth, raised to believe that they're real. It's more of a Western a Western trait to doubt this, but the whole Eastern world is brought up to believe that this is the way it is, right? So let's just pretend we all agree this is the way it is right now. Reincarnation is real. So karma is real. And what you're doing is every lifetime attempting to purify your karma, attempting to essentially raise your vibration to such a point where it is so high, you're living at such a steady, high vibration and frequency that you're purifying the past deeds that were of a low frequency. That's my explanation of it. obviously other people could say it much more eloquently, who are steeped in these teachings, which I'm not. This is all just through like, actual lived experience through my clients.
Wow.
I see them coming here to right past wrongs through their sessions. I see them coming here to free themselves from the bondage and the chains of previous lifetimes and experiences that they had that made a mark, essentially a mark on their soul that they want to purify and clean and cleanse. And some people just like certain things. Like some people just like being on the sea, so they might have been a captain in a previous life and now they have a yacht, or they really like fishing. So some of it is just what's fun on earth and they want to come do it again. But if there is something that you've known that since you were little that you were good at, it stood out. I mean, there was a spark of something there and you love fostering that. I believe you had that before you got here and you came here with the intention of magnifying it. So there's a bit of destiny there, but there's also a lot of free will. You could come here, before you jump into this lifetime and you're in this realm or you're looking at all the possible lifetimes to choose, all the potential parents you could have, all the paths you could take, and you choose the one you choose and you say, this is going to be a magnificent life. And then you get down here and get addicted to heroin. You're not going to fulfill that dream. That wasn't the dream, at least based on my lived experience with thousands and thousands. No one comes here with that as the goal, right? No one comes here with the goal of, some people come here with the goal of experiencing profound depression, but they always have the goal of overcoming it. But we can get trapped, right? Humans can get trapped, and that's a lot of free will. And you can also have the free will to change that. And hypnotherapy is the most profound way I've ever seen to be able to change that and help people get back on the path that they chose to be on before they even got here. And of course, I could be totally wrong. All of this could be wrong, but we won't know till we're on the other side. But I see people becoming very happy and very fulfilled when this is the way that they go.
So what happens? Like you experienced a session with somebody, they have immense pain, they release the pain, and then what happens next typically?
Well, that one particular example was one of the first clients I ever had. I hadn't even been certified in past life regressions yet, so I was shocked. I was so like, what is happening? Is she going to be mad at me, when she opens her eyes after the session, because this is so wild and out there? And because I was brand new, my business was set up. I mean, really, she was a Groupon client. She bought a Groupon from me. That's how I launched my business. And so I didn't see her again. It was, and a lot of these people, I did 1,000 sessions. Well, I did I sold 954 sessions in 24 hours when I did my Groupon launch. So I did 1,000 sessions my first year, and that was 11 years ago.
Wow.
I didn't have any customer service. I didn't have any money. I didn't have any hours in the day left. I saw between 8 and 9 people a day. And so my, what are they called? Yelp reviews at the time were horrible because I wouldn't respond to emails. Anyone who actually ended up having a session with me and wrote a Yelp review was always 5 stars, 100% of the time. But there were all these 1 stars with people saying like, I can't even get in for my session. So yeah, it took some people a full year to come see me. And so I share all of that because I have no idea what some of those outcomes were. I have no idea what most of those outcomes were because they'd see me for 1 session or 3. Those were the package options at the time. And if they wanted to buy more, I couldn't see them for a year.
Wow.
Because I was already booked with the rest of the group on people who were angry and writing all these mean reviews.
I see.
So I had to see them. So luckily, she wrote to me saying her pain on average was an 8. So 0 out of 10, 10 being you literally can't move. It's blackout. You're throwing up. You're in so much pain. She was at a standard 8 before she saw me. And after our session, she was at a standard 2.
Wow.
So that was that one, example. But now in recent years, I work with clients for a year at a time. So I'm watching their entire lives transform week after week after week, completely transform.
And the pain that gets released, like something happens when you become aware of or you look at pain that you've either created in your own life or that pain has been created to you. And something happens where as soon as you look at it, you're transformed by it. What is going on there?
Yeah. A lot of different things for a lot of different people. Let me see if I can find a through line. Okay, so your pain wants to teach you something. your pain wants to get your attention. Your pain is trying to say something loudly. And for some people, it's as simple as, for Rafa, who just had hip surgery, right? It might be stop playing tennis for a second. Please, not forever. But you need to slow down, right? Or you need to rehabilitate, right? There might be a deeper emotional component there as well. Hopefully I'll work with him one day soon and I'll be able to tell you. Or I won't be able to tell you, but I'll know. But for a lot of people, this pain, and I've seen this a lot with clients with fibromyalgia, is an emotional message that they have not quieted themselves down enough to hear. So here's a story that I tell a lot. If I shared it in the last episode, just interrupt me. But I was working with an older woman. She was a grandma, and she had inexplicable pain. Her average pain was also an 8 out of 10. And I asked her, what are all the reasons for why you want to get rid of the pain? And, she had a laundry list this long. And then I asked her conscious mind before we got into hypnosis, and what are the reasons for why you want to keep the pain? And she was very incredulous. She was annoyed I was even asking. There's no reasons at all for me to keep this pain. Did I share this?
No.
Okay, good. And so we get into hypnosis, and I asked the subconscious mind the same thing. What are all the reasons why you want to get rid of it? She added a few more things she hadn't said before. And then I asked her subconscious, what are all the reasons why you want to keep the pain? And she instantly, there wasn't a pause. If I get better, my son will stop bringing my grandchildren to visit me every weekend, and I'll be so lonely, I'll die.
Wow.
Instant response. She didn't even, there was no thinking. It was right there. So of course her conscious mind didn't understand this. Her conscious mind just thought, I'm in pain and it's taking away from my time with my grandkids. They're here seeing me, but I'm not fun, or I'm a little grouchy, or I can't get down on the floor and play with them, right? But her subconscious thought she would die from the loneliness. And since it's our subconscious mind's job to keep us alive and keep us safe, being in pain versus dying of loneliness, the pain's going to win every time, right? So we had to negotiate. And we said, even if they came to see you less, but you lived longer, right? Statistically. And when you're in hypnosis, you don't say things, you're not going to plant seeds of fear. So I'm explaining it to you now because we're all at the conscious level. So I said it a little differently to her then. But the gist is, studies have shown chronic pain decreases lifespan, right? So if you're more comfortable, if you feel good in your body, if you feel healthy and vibrant, chances are you live longer. So what if you release the pain so that, maybe you don't see them every weekend, but what if you get to be at their high school graduation and their college graduation and their wedding? And what if you get to hold your great grandbaby one day? And that was the leverage we needed. It has to be leverage. It can't just be, but you'll feel better without the pain. No, it has to be huge amounts of leverage. And this was live longer leverage. So it won. And her pain went down to an average of, she was like, most days I'm a 0. On a bad day, I'm at a 2, 3. And when she told her son this, her son was so mad at her. He was like, why didn't you just tell me this? I would have kept bringing the kids. And she's like, I didn't know.
Yeah.
I didn't know. I would have told you. And, he kept visiting at least once a month after that. So pain, there's a story to it. It wants you to know something. It is screaming to get your attention. And if you quiet your mind and you go into the theta brainwave state, you can find out like this, what it wants you to know.
It's so troubling that so many of us are like a fish in water in terms of our pain, or in terms of the things that are holding us back. It's like we don't even realize the things that are holding us back so often. Mm-hmm. How do we get better at identifying those things?
Yeah, it's interesting. They say you can't read the label when you're inside the bottle.
Yeah.
And that's why I love having hypnotherapy sessions with my team as well. The people who went to my school, who I trained, I can have sessions with them and they can help me get insights that, at this point I go into the theta brainwave state so quickly and so deep, I get kind of lost in la la land, which is great. It feels awesome and I'm so relaxed and I get all this amazing information, but it's not necessarily what I set out to get. Does that make sense? So it's like, let's say when I was dealing with all the gut stuff and it's getting so much better, right? But for the longest time, it's like exactly as you said, I'm this person in the world. If anybody should figure this out in 2 seconds, it's me. If any should be able to heal this in 2 seconds, it's me. But the thing is, I knew immediately I was supposed to do the raw vegan thing, but I'm already sober. I'm already a hypnotherapist. You know what I mean? Like I'm already all these, we're homeschooling our kids now. Like, I mean, how many more things do I have to do to make it so that I'm not the person invited to the neighborhood barbecue? You know what I mean? Like how many more ways do I have to not do what everybody else is doing? But I kind of rejected that. I wanted to just be able to eat slightly better, but still go out to restaurants and still participate in daily life. And, you know, it's like once you can afford a first class flight, like now what are you going to do? Like sit there and not eat? So the thing is, a lot of times we do know, and we fight it. Like I knew within 2 months, if I went raw vegan, whatever this was would probably go away.
You just didn't want to for some reason.
Yeah, and I tested it for 30 days, but I did it a little bit wrong. And then because it wasn't perfect, I convinced myself I could go back to eating some of the things I wanted to eat, you know? And then you just get to a point where it hurts too much and too much time has passed and you're just like, I'm not doing this anymore. I don't care how weird I am. I don't care how different I seem. I don't care how much I have to miss out on. If I can be vibrantly healthy for the rest of my life, it's worth it. And so that's why hypnosis only becomes successful on a scale of 0 to 10, 10 being you want it more than anything in the entire world. Hypnosis only starts working at a 7. So, you know, my personal experience when I first had Aurora, when you first have a baby, you don't expect to bounce back. So you give yourself a bunch of like emotionally, physically, with your energy. Now you've got a newborn who's waking up in the middle of the night. So you don't really necessarily notice something's wrong, right? For a long time, like maybe up to a year, you just figure you're getting over having a baby. And then for a year, it's like trial and error. And then finally, it's just too much. And now I'm on this new path. And so for other folks, it's the same way. It's like if you've only been dealing with an issue for a little while, you might not be a 7 out of 10 in terms of how much you desire to overcome it. And so you might not be willing to do what it takes to heal it. But for people who are like, I will do anything, I will do whatever it takes to quit smoking or make more money or grow the pod, as I know you are so committed, then when those messages come to you, you'll take them seriously, even if they're hard.
Yeah. One thing that keeps popping up for me is that the things that I've done successfully, it's almost been like, I'd rather die than not complete this.
Yes.
And so it strikes me as interesting that you say like 7 out of 10 for hypnotherapy to work. You have to really believe it. And for me, it's been like the things that I've wanted to accomplish, 10 out of 10. Only the 10 out of 10 things actually work.
What's an example?
Meditation, for sure. When I knew that, like, all right, I was going to go inward, I was like, I'd rather die than not be at peace with my mind. Yeah. Because that's the voice in my head that I'm spending every day with. Yeah. And so.
That's so good, Dave.
Right? It's it's so important because if you don't identify those things, if you don't identify the place in your life where you would literally rather just not be here than not accomplish, like, that's how I've gotten to the next level on so much.
Amazing. And I do wonder, because I do believe in this concept of divine timing, that everything's unfolding perfectly and what's happening right now is exactly what's meant to be. And so it's like, if I was supposed to feel the way I do now 3 years ago, I would have.
Yeah.
And I would have been that intense. So a lot of times people, it's funny when I do live events or something with a Q&A, people will say like, how does hypnosis compare to tapping, EFT, or, you know, how does hypnosis compare to breath work, or how does it, but I would need to be a world expert in those other things to truly be able to say exactly what it is about them, right? How they compare. I know the basics, I've done them all, but if the universe wanted me to be the spokesperson for tapping, and I love tapping, my friend Gala Darling's one of the world's experts. I love the tapping solution. Jessica Ortner's a great friend. Like, all these people are amazing. If I was supposed to be obsessed with tapping, I would be. Right. And then I would be. Like, when I get obsessed, I'm a 10, right? 10 out of 10. Yeah. So that's also another way that the universe helps us find our path and our destiny, and the things that we decided to come here to do is because we do become a 10 out of 10 for those things. And then the only thing that confuses us, like gut health can be a major one, and it's so pervasive because it's our second brain, right? It's where serotonin, so much serotonin is processed and developed. And so you can get confused and muddled, but like if you clear that up, And then you listen to, what am I so passionate about? That leads you towards the thing you came here to do.
Yeah. And the tuning out in some sense of external voices and making sure you're really focused on the internal one has been impactful in that journey. And even deeper than the internal voice is the internal voice you don't even know exists, which is the subconscious, right?
Yes, exactly. Do you find, because you meet so many fascinating, brilliant people who have such great advice, that you've ever received advice from someone who you look up to so much, but you knew it wasn't right for you?
That's an interesting question. I've never been asked that. I'm not sure is the honest answer, because I also feel similar to you, is like a sense of divine timing and the sense of like everything being perfect just as it is, and the ability to listen to myself over the other person, even if I like the other person. Perfect. Like a lot of it comes in, but the things that stick are the things that I just follow.
They're for you.
And I think that kind of gets misunderstood when listening to a podcast or watching something versus being a part of it. Is I almost think when you listen to something, you put it more on a pedestal, or you watch something, you put it up more on a pedestal, versus when you experience it, it seems more like looking you in your eyes different than looking at you on the stage. Right. And so I'm looking at all these people in their eyes and I'm able to not let it stick to me so easily, because it's just bird's eye view. But if I was looking up to them at the stage, it almost would be like their gospel that I would need to instill. Does that make sense?
Absolutely. And that's hypnotic, being on stage. So when you think about the function that's used a lot in Hollywood, that swinging watch with hypnosis, the whole reason for the swinging watch is because it tires your eyes to watch something like that back and forth. And when your eyes get tired, it sends a very quick message to your body to relax. And so you can go into the theta brainwave state very quickly. So a device that we use because that's creepy, and Hollywood, took it and ran with it and made it, all these terrible things. So we can teach our clients, if you just look where the wall meets the ceiling, just look at the corner, just stare at that for a couple of seconds. Pretty soon your eyelids are going to get heavy, blinking. And then if you were to close your eyes, especially because you meditate so much, you'd go right in. That's what people on stage are. That's what people in the pulpit are. You're already going into theta. So that's an aside. You're absolutely right. It would be the gospel and it would be going deeper. So I think that's very cool that what's coming to you just sticks, right? And the rest might be for people listening, or they might not be. And I think there's important things that once you're in a position where someone's asking you questions and asking for advice, you have to understand that the perfect advice for one person might be the exact opposite, most wrong thing the person sitting right next to them could do. And so that's why I give a lot of caveats around all the everything, right? The past life, the food, the everything, because what's perfect for me in my life is going to electrify me and make me more powerful and happier and more vibrant. And I'm going to be more efficient and effective at doing what I'm here to do. And those same things could suck the life out of somebody else, right? So everybody who's listening needs to understand that when something lights a spark in you, it's for you. And the rest of the time, don't even worry about it. It doesn't matter who's saying it. I had a very important person, I would say probably one of the top 10 podcasts in the world, one of those people, say to me maybe 8 years ago that I was an idiot for going down the hypnotherapy path and that I should just call it something else because people are too scared and don't do it. And I looked up to this person so much, and I still for 1 second didn't take that.
Wow.
Not even for a second did I consider it. The minute they said it, and that person was on a pedestal for me. Like I couldn't believe I was out to lunch with them. I just heard, they're wrong. That's wrong. That's incorrect.
Why? Why were you so confident to believe in your own voice in that moment?
Well, for one thing, they don't know anything about my industry. They don't know anything about this work. They weren't a client. And then I heard this person just thinks that they know everything about everything. And that doesn't make them a bad person. It actually makes them very good at their job, right? Because they feel confident enough to have a conversation with everyone about everything. And it got them where they are, and that's very cool. They believe that they belong in those rooms, right? The only time that becomes dangerous is if you believe that they're correct, right? About everything. And I didn't. And I feel so grateful that that was so highly tuned within me. And I do think, if I had just called this the grace method, there would have been, and dropped the rest, there would have been a path forward. But it's not the same as giving credence to a tool that's been around for 3,000 years and has been effective for that long. And now being at the top of an industry that's going to explode and owning all that SEO. I wasn't thinking all that 8 years ago, but the universe rewards you for having faith in yourself and trusting that inner voice. Yeah.
One thing that keeps popping up in this conversation is the feeling of everything is perfect just as it is. And I find that having conversations with people like that are always so much easier and so much more effortless than people who feel a need to control certain things. When did you first start or notice a belief that everything was perfect just as it was?
Probably when I met Bernardo. Yeah. Everything's been perfect since then. But because I met him in this meditation course, which we talked about briefly at the Art of Living, that's one of the things that Sri Sri teaches, and all enlightened masters teach it. And being able to apply that to all the illness stuff over the past few years has been so amazing. I actually really think my deeper sort of inner knowing about this, now that I'm really coming out the other side, is I was being slowed down on purpose. I was on a very fast trajectory before COVID. In February 2020, I was in LA meeting with networks for a TV show. So I was in the Netflix offices. I was in Discovery. I was all these amazing things. I was at Quibi.
Wow.
Yeah.
Thank God you didn't do a show
I
there.
know, right? Those offices were so cool. But yeah. And, but it's like the world wasn't ready just yet. And if I had a show and it had been on Quibi, and then I had a track record of having had a show, but it didn't do what it was supposed to do. It's like the universe was like, we're going to give you the least serious problem you can have. It's going to be annoying and kind of suck, but we've got to slow you down a little so that the timing will be perfect. That's genuinely what I believe. So I'm not mad about it. There were times I was frustrated and I was hard on myself because I'm supposed to be this person. But like, all that's just conscious nonsense, and I can get past it so fast the minute I go back to none of that's real. What's real is this is perfect. This is unfolding perfectly. And for whatever reason, the universe just wanted me to like pump the brakes for a hot second. And they're going to tell me when to put my foot on the gas. And I will have the energy to do it. And I will have the focus. And they will have removed all obstacles. And I'm just going to fly. And I know that's coming. And I'm excited to see when it is because I have no idea. And I have no idea what's going to be at the end of that, but it's going to be magnificent, So I think I probably always didn't have the words for it. I had a sense of it as a child, lost it when I was drinking for sure, and started getting it back with the Art of Living. And now it's just like the bedrock of who I am, basically.
What advice would you have for somebody who wants to experience more of that?
More of the faith that everything's perfect?
Yes.
This is a fun exercise. When you think about all of the worst things that have ever happened in your life, just jot down how that was better than an alternative. Like, I really wanted to have my first son with a natural birth. I had a 40-hour labor ending in an emergency C-section, exact opposite of what he could have hoped for. And so in some ways that looks like that wasn't perfect, but it was. I mean, the alternative is we both die.
Yeah.
And that's what would have happened 150 years ago without modern medicine, right? So I was so blessed. It was so perfect. It was absolutely perfect. And so I really encourage everybody to do that. Like, look at all the worst things that could have happened and then write down what's actually worse than that and realize how you were protected. You were protected. If you're here listening to this, you're still here. So you've been protected.
It's true.
And that just starts to loosen the chains around the belief that, like, oh gosh, don't ever believe you're unlucky. You got to get rid of that belief immediately. You got to kill that belief. And I wouldn't use that word lightly. I mean, that has to be destroyed. You have to believe you're lucky. You have to believe you're blessed. My fingers are tingling just saying that. Like, you have to believe you are meant for good things and good things are coming to you. And so that's a really first good exercise to start dismantling that any negative beliefs around being unlucky or being, God forbid, don't have the belief that you're cursed or that any of that kind of stuff. But millions of people genuinely believe those things, and they don't believe those thoughts are dangerous.
Mm-hmm.
Just their parents had them. Their culture has them. You gotta let go of them. And obviously, I'm going to say hypnosis is the most powerful way to do that. But little exercises like that, just writing out how the worst things that ever happened to you were actually protecting you, is a great first step.
What are the beliefs that you've noticed that have held you back recently and that you've overcome in order to create a brighter future for yourself?
Oh, they're so petty and silly, you know, like I look horrible. Because when I was at the peak of all the gut issues, anytime I ate anything, I immediately looked 7 months pregnant. And it was all inflammation. And that leads to autoimmune diseases. That leads to, you can't be that chronically inflamed for years and it not go somewhere, right? So I would have to catch those beliefs very quickly and not let them go anywhere. And you got to watch out for Dr. Google, right? when you go to as many doctors as I did and you still don't know the exact reason these things are happening, what the actual problem is, you Google a lot and then you see these horrible things. So you got to quickly rewire those. But yeah, just a lot of very petty things about how I look. Most of the other things are so fleeting. Like, can I really do this? Those things cross my mind. But then, what really gets me out of it, and I know this won't apply to most people listening, but just honestly, what gets me out of it, my clients are such geniuses. They are some of the most powerful people on earth. They're the smartest humans you can imagine, and they value working with me. They come to me for advice. They come to me to help them work on things. And so when I would have those thoughts, I'd quickly be like, yeah, but this person works with me, so it's fine.
That's good.
Which is a quick fix. And it's great. And I'm very lucky to be in a position. I feel very blessed to be in the position to be able to have that. But also it is giving power externally a bit. And so you still got to do the deeper work of I'm worthy even without them.
Yeah.
And that's why I really care about being a successful business person in and of myself, because I don't want my success to be secondary. My success is not just because I worked with someone who actually did something. I have a visceral not wanting that. I remember there was this person who gave one of my books a really nasty review, scathing, and that never happens. Really, some people will be like, it wasn't for me, but for the most part, it's, this changed my life. I loved it, but this was just scathing. So I could see who the person was and looked them up, and they were a psychologist. And on the banner of their website, they had worked with this very famous athlete 2 decades ago. And I just had this visceral thing in my body. I was like, that can't be my legacy. My legacy can't just be that I worked with people who actually changed the world, right? I've got to do that myself. And so our business being 2-time Inc. 5000 and being the largest provider and all of that, in some ways I gain more from that than I even do from the fact that I'm working with these household names every day. But in the moment, it is a helpful quick fix. Yeah.
That's fascinating, because you're so right that the internal is really how you get the validation for yourself, and that goes outward to the world after you first find it and figure it out and become whole.
Yeah.
When you look at the people who you need to, you look at it and they come to you with problems and issues, and what do you do to help bring their level of consciousness up? What do you do to help them become a more whole human and find that self-worth for themselves?
Yeah, the people I've been working with recently are at a whole nother caliber, actually. Then that's not to say anything about the people I've been working with prior to that,
Right.
they're all geniuses. What happens is you start working with one person and then they introduce you to their friends.
Yes.
And so this is a level that I had never worked with before. There's something, okay, I want to get the words right because I haven't had to describe this yet out loud. Okay, there's like, when there's electricity in the air and there's that like crackle in the air from the electricity, when they walk in the room, that is there.
Wow.
It is palpable. It's like your hair stands up on your arms. And they have that. They just have that. They are, so something Sri Ravi Shankar said recently, someone asked, okay, so there's meditation, there's breath work, there's, they didn't say hypnosis, but there's hypnosis. They're asking Sri this, what's the newest technology that's going to come to humanity to help our consciousness evolve? Because there's got to be something new coming in. I mean, what's the next thing? And Sri said energy transfer, that there will be people who have honed their energy so much that they can literally just be in a room with people and the energy transfers and everybody rises up. And when we talked about Eckhart in our first interview together, when you interviewed me, that's what he does. That's what happened to me. It transferred to me. So that's what my clients do. They are energy transfers, but they're energy transfers for whatever. It's not just pure enlightenment if that's not what they're focused on. So I'm not saying they're transferring anything bad, because they're not. But if they're not clear, they're going to transfer whatever's going on. Does that make sense?
Yes.
So like a spiritual enlightened master is always going to be transferring the purity, because that's what they're here for. Someone who is that crackly energy, electric in the room, energy transfer the minute they enter the space, they've got to get aligned. Otherwise, they're spreading things they don't want to spread. And that can lead to karma they don't want to have. And none of that's fear-mongering. They're aware of that. I'm not teaching them that. They're coming to me because they're aware of that and because they want to make sure that there is nothing in the space that isn't theirs and that isn't intentional and that isn't going to be positive when the energy transfer occurs.
I've never thought about human beings having the ability to transfer energy like that, and some people having the ability to emit a greater transfer of energy to others than some. And so the people who listen to this podcast are the type of people who are energy transmitters.
Yes.
And who help bring the world to just whatever they're feeling in some sense.
Yeah.
That's the sense that I get from communicating with the listeners of this podcast. So,
well, they would only be here listening to this if they were meant to hear it. So I completely agree with you.
Exactly. So someone hears that, they're like, yeah, like I transfer energy a lot to the people I'm with. What should they do?
Be clean and clear. So when we were talking earlier about the generational trauma, you can think of that as sort of being, okay, so think of it like a river. The river can be pure, it can be clean, it can be clear, so that anyone who drinks from it is fortified by it. They're hydrated by it. Their own cells can function more effectively because of it. But if there is generational trauma that you're coming in with, you're coming in with a polluted river, and then you've got to clean it. And then if you hang out with toxic people, you eat toxic food, you ingest toxic substances, you live in a toxic environment, you're polluting the river further. So we've kind of got two angles we're going at. We got to clean the subconscious stuff we came in with and the subconscious stuff that we've built upon. And then I do think the external stuff like the food and where you live and who you hang out with is major as well. But if your river gets purified, then everyone you interact with gets to drink from that pure water versus being an energy transfer from something that's partially polluted. And that's one of the reasons why I think Eckhart Tolle says, if an unconscious person is teaching, they're spreading unconsciousness. And you've got to be really aware of that.
A key part in that is like identifying people to follow or people's words to follow. How do you think about that in terms of finding people to learn from?
I follow you. I literally, if you look at my Instagram, I follow Eckhart, I follow Pima Chodron, I follow Sri, I follow Byron Katie, I followed the Dalai Lama, but as of late there was a thing and then I wasn't sure. And He's got such a miraculous history, and I do think people need to be their legacy needs to be the whole picture, not the thing that they say when they're in mental decline. But still, it was serious enough that I was like, oh, I would just take a little pause there. That's what I want to fill my brain with. And I know and love so many brilliant people, and sometimes I feel guilty I don't follow more folks. But then if I were to follow even 2 more, then I'd feel like I have to follow everybody, if they were to look and see. So I really only follow who I believe are enlightened spiritual masters, because I want to purify my river. And sometimes, my discovery feed is essentially like cute babies, cute animals, and like really great quotes. But every once in a while, something about a celebrity will pop in. And then I find my brain thinking about it. Like, this couple just broke up, and I'm like, I don't know them. That adds nothing to my life. Or this person just, and it's like, you can see when you spend so much time clearing and cleaning and clearing and cleaning, it's so easy to see what sticks, and you don't want it there, So I'm very careful about what I watch before bed. My husband has this joke now, when you don't want to let kids see scary movies or something. So there's PG-13 and there's PG and there's G-rated, but then there's like mommy rated, and mommy rated is like Bambi, but not even Bambi, because bad things happen to the mom. Like, I can't watch hardly anything, because even comedy shows, and I love laughing. Some of it is just so provocative for the sake of being provocative, and it's not funny. I don't want that input. I don't want it there. So I'm very careful about what I bring in. I did watch Succession and I loved it. Oh my gosh. But that's like as intense as I can get. Yeah.
Well, we have so many images that are brought to our face and our attention in any given day that we don't even think about what it means or why it's there, but it gets stored somewhere in our brain, and we don't realize that. And I guess, what are the first steps someone can think about to purify their mind and purify their feeds that they're looking at in order to create a more light world?
Yeah, I know some people won't agree with this, but I really have benefited from, at first I just followed no one. I went down to 0, and it completely changed my feed, which was great, because now all the compare and despair went away. There was so much of that. You can't really help it when your peers are, something goes viral, and you have a split second thought of like, oh, should I make content like that? No, definitely not. If that was the impetus, just you saw someone else do it and it worked for them, and you think, should I do that? Don't do it. But if it comes from your heart, if it comes from you were inspired walking out in nature and you had this idea, and it turns out other people are doing something similar, and you find out about it later, totally fine. That's cool. All that means, I think, is that the universe really wants this out there, because it's told a bunch of people to do it, right? So when I first followed no people at all, that was great. Then I started to follow just a couple enlightened masters. That really helped. But when you get stuck on something, like for whatever reason, the feud between Selena Gomez and Hailey Bieber got in my feed. And I thought about it for like 3 days in a row.
Wow. And
I don't know either of these women. And I just felt so sad for everyone involved. And I'm like genuinely feeling sad. I don't know them yet. I probably will. I had to do a lot of self-hypnosis. So every time they came to mind, I would just do a 30-second self-hypnosis and think about what I'm grateful for in my life and bring me back to the present, bring me back to my house, my kids, my hands, my hair, the book I'm holding, my husband's eyes, like back here. Because my worrying about them, I'm not about to make, a video about it or anything. So my worrying about them, it's not helping them. It's not helping anyone around them. And it's bringing my vibration down. And the only reason I'm aware of it is because my feed decided I needed to know, not because I went searching for it. So yeah, I would do self-hypnosis and then it'd be gone. It would just be gone.
Yeah. I think to take a break or to take a realization of like, why is that in your brain right now, is so helpful to help clear your space and clear your mind and clear your body from the things that we consume. It's it's crazy. Like, try to go a day without advertisements.
Oh, yeah.
Like, it's impossible.
It's impossible.
And that, like, what does that say? Those are things that are fed to your mind because someone else wanted to put them there.
Yes.
At least with the podcast, you're choosing to listen to this.
Yes.
But there are a lot of things that are coming into our being that we didn't choose. And we are okay with that. And it's like, would we be okay with that if we chose it? Maybe not.
Absolutely. Yeah. When people say, oh, hypnosis is mind control, I'm like, well, if it were, then every multinational would hire a hypnotist to go on their commercials. And instead of watching your show, every time the commercials came on, you'd be in your car, foot on the gas, going to buy the paper towel brand that got to you first, right? Like, of course, it's not mind control, but that doesn't mean that these subliminal messages don't build over time. They do. Advertising gets to us over time, obviously, or they wouldn't spend the money that they do on it.
It's such an important concept that I've never thought about before. This right now is like, you need to advertise to yourself.
Yes.
The person you want to be.
Yes.
And if you can do that, if you can repeat the images or the words or the beliefs over and over to yourself, it will seep into your being because it works because advertisers pay to do it.
Exactly. Advertise yourself to yourself.
Yes.
I love that. It's free and it will, oh my gosh, the gains from that, the dividends it will yield, immeasurable. I mean, you'll get to live the life of your dreams.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's beautiful. Well, this has been so much fun. I'm so grateful for you for spending the time with me. I like to end these podcasts with a challenge. A challenge points to the place in your heart you believe we should take some action and somebody listening should take some action. The last challenge on episode 301 is to have a nice self-guided or guided by you hypnosis, which is remarkable. I'll link that down below.
Thanks.
But what should we challenge people to do after listening to this episode?
I think what we discussed around self-love and it being the way to dismantle the most powerful way to purify the dirty river. Let's put it that way. It is the thing that is going to most quickly get rid of that pollution so that you can be the energy transfer you want to be. So without it seeming fluffy, we got to add gravitas to the self-love work, right? And understand that someone else benefited from you hating yourself. Someone else benefited from you believing you needed their product or their service or to think that they were better than you, right? Now it's time for you to benefit. How can you flip the script? How can you love yourself enough that you are the sole beneficiary and your life becomes just so magnified, just so amplified, right? So I think an exercise in that is jotting down all the ways that other people, businesses have benefited from you hating yourself, have benefited from you thinking less of yourself, have benefited from you comparing yourself, and then take all of that and write what the exact opposite would be. When I believed I was overweight, others benefited from that in these ways. So now that I believe that I'm perfect, I benefit in these ways. Take each one of those items, each one of those line items, and then literally flip the script, write down the 180 and make that your hypnosis, right? You can listen to my app, you can have sessions with my team or with me, you can go to my school, you can read my books, but you can hypnotize yourself by taking those reversals, the script that you're going to flip. Close your eyes, go into a meditative state, and just repeat them over and over and over and over again. You've got to do it from the theta brainwave state, from the meditative state, for it to be hypnosis and for it to really, really be powerful. But that's all you need. It's free.
So beautifully said. Grace, thank you so much for spending the time with me, for coming all the way to the studio, and for sharing so much wisdom.
Thank you for having me again. It's always such a joy. Thanks for listening, everybody.